Hello and good evening, friends, and welcome to this very special edition of Strictly Sports. I am your host, Anthony Florio, joined as always by good old MF Michael Fletcher. Michael Bullock here with us as well. And gentlemen, tonight we are going to preview, perhaps without question, the six most anticipated college football bowl games of the entire bowl season. These are the six games we look forward to more than any six other games out of all the other bowls. We're talking about the New Year's Six, folks. The New Year's Six. These are the games we look forward to the most when it comes to bowl season, although there have been some other good ones during the bowl season so far. And we'll see how they line up. But for right now, let's kick it off, gentlemen. Before we do start, one quick note about these New Year's Six games. All six of these games will be broadcast exclusively on ESPN. So ESPN crews will be on hand for all of these matchups. And we started off with the game that will kick off tomorrow night at 8 o'clock Eastern on ESPN from AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas. It will be the Oklahoma Sooners squaring off against the Gators. It's the number 7 Florida Gators and the number 6 Oklahoma Sooners in the Cotton Bowl. And on the call for that one, it'll be Joe Tessitore, Greg McElroy, and Holly Rowe. Oklahoma opening up as a 3.5-point favorite. Without any further ado, let's get into some New Year's Six action. The New Year's Six bowl games kick off at the Cotton Bowl tomorrow night with a unique matchup between perennial powers from the Big 12 and the SEC. The Oklahoma Sooners and Florida Gators will meet at AT&T Stadium for the second time ever in a postseason matchup. 11 years ago, the Sooners and Gators met in the 2009 BCS National Championship game, and they were led by a pair of future NFL quarterbacks in Tim Tebow and Sam Bradford. Kyle Trask and Spencer Rattler could carve out paths to the professional level in the coming years, but first they will square off in what should be an entertaining affair between the number 6 and number 7 teams in the country. Oklahoma and Florida trended in different directions toward the end of the regular season. The Sooners reeled off 7 straight wins and held off the Iowa State Cyclones to win the Big 12 championship game. In that very same building, oh, by the way. The Gators were in the mix for a college football playoff berth until they were upset by the LSU Tigers. They followed that up with a competitive loss to the Alabama Crimson Tide in the SEC championship game in Atlanta. Both offenses possess plenty of talent around Rattler and Trask. Oklahoma has 2 running backs with over 400 rushing yards and 4 wideouts with 20 or more catches. Florida possesses 5 receivers with over 20 catches and 200 receiving yards. The Gators will call on Kadarius Toney and Trevon Grimes more in the Cotton Bowl since Kyle Pitts declared for the 2021 NFL Draft. Florida has experience playing without Pitts, and it should learn from the mistakes committed in the loss to LSU to deal with his absence better. Toney can make up for Pitt's big play threat, while Jacob Copeland, Malik Davis, and a few others can step up in larger roles. Oklahoma's offense hit its stride when running back Ramondre Stevenson returned to the lineup. Stevenson and Toney could compete for the title of most talented skill position player participating in the Cotton Bowl. In 5 games, Stevenson racked up 479 rushing yards, 6 touchdowns, and an average of 5.8 yards a carry. While the loaded offensive rosters could make you think a shootout is in store, both defenses are capable of turning in strong performances. Oklahoma held 5 of its last 6 opponents to 21 points or fewer. That reversal in form occurred after the 53-45 quadruple overtime win over the Texas Longhorns. Prior to their losses to LSU and Alabama, the Gators held 4 of 6 opponents beneath the 20-point threshold. Florida's defense needs a reset to successfully handle Rattler, Stevenson, and company, and if it turns things around, both offenses could be forced to grind out points. Oklahoma's defense is playing a bit better, and it has been a reliable unit since the start of November. Since Florida has less than 2 weeks to make defensive adjustments, it may not put in too many new wrinkles that it can work on to contain Oklahoma's offensive weapons. In a normal season, the Gators would have over 20 days to employ some new schematics for their bowl game. Tony should be able to break loose for 1 or 2 big plays, but the Gators do not have a dynamic rushing attack like Oklahoma possesses. In the SEC championship game, Florida ran for 54 total yards, and backup quarterback Emory Jones earned its highest rushing total. If Oklahoma takes away Tony's impact and Florida struggles at times to play without Pitts, the Sooners could break away with the victory. I am going with the Oklahoma Sooners to win the Cotton Bowl over Florida. My final score, 31-23. Oklahoma beats Florida in the Cotton Bowl. AT&T Stadium's become like a second home for them. So I think it's because of that. I think that's going to benefit Oklahoma greatly. So Boomer Sooner. That's all I can say. So good 11, Michael Fletcher, come on in. Number 7 is number 6, Oklahoma, and number 7, Florida. Cotton Bowl. Start us off for the New Year.
Yeah, and it's going to be a good matchup. These are two of the, I don't want to say traditional powers of college football, but Oklahoma is well known. We know them in the national championship scene. We've seen them win it all in the last few years. They did win it all. I want to say about a decade ago they won the national championship. Of course, if you talk about Florida, you got to talk about Tim Tebow. Tebow and what he did during his time. There was a time where basically Florida was a national power, a powerhouse, one of the best teams in the SEC. Before Alabama became Alabama, it was Florida. You had Urban Meyer as the head coach. You had Tim Tebow at the starting quarterback. And they were a dynasty. They won, I believe, 3 out of 4 national championships during that time. So, obviously, when you talk about two teams that are very synonymous with the national championship scene, and to be a part of what undoubtedly is one of the biggest events of the year in the New Year's Six, when you talk about them being in the New Year's Six, I mean, look, both teams had incredible years, and both teams could have made an argument that they should be in the top 4, fighting for the national championship. For Florida, they had a chance until LSU tripped them up. When LSU tripped them up, that ended any hope for them to get to the national championship game. Then they played a great battle against Alabama, just couldn't hang at the end. For Oklahoma, different story. They won the Big 12 championship. They had a chance to get there, but they got tripped up earlier in the year. With all this, the scheduling and the problems, but Oklahoma fell flat on their faces the first 2 weeks, and they literally knocked themselves right out of the picture, right out of jump. So, with this matchup going in, Anthony, you're absolutely right. It is in Texas. It is in Arlington. It is at AT&T. Normally, when it's in Arlington, AT&T Stadium, Oklahoma is a monster in there. I don't know how they do it. They turn it to a different team, they flip the switch, and they win. There's no doubt about it. They are a powerful team, and they're going to be a problem for Florida. Florida's going to have to figure it out. You kind of have to get back to what brought you to the dance. That's throwing it down the field, getting the pressure on the quarterback. They love to use safety help, and what they do is a lot of safety blitzes. At the end of the day, I just don't think Florida has enough horses in the stable that will be able to match with Oklahoma's firepower. Even though Florida's going to give them fits and they're going to cause a lot of drama throughout the game, ultimately Oklahoma will win this game, and take the Cotton Bowl tomorrow night. Anthony, I agree with you. I got Oklahoma winning as well. Mike Bullock, it's yours, my friend.
Yeah, I agree. This is going to be a really good game. I can I could definitely see this being a really good shootout between these two teams. But yeah, Oklahoma. I mean, they're the ones on a much. They're on a roll as of right now. Like you said, they're the ones that won their conference title, but so they're the ones coming in on a roll. So yeah, there's really nothing more to say. I got Oklahoma winning this one as well. So with that being said, Florio, let's move on to our next game.
And the next game will be played on New Year's Day, Friday afternoon at high noon on ESPN. It'll be the first one is known as the Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic. This next one is the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. Yes, sir. The Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl is our next matchup, and it will feature the number 9 Maiden Georgia Bulldogs squaring off against the number 8 Cincinnati Bearcats, Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, Georgia. And hold on one moment. All right. And on the call for that one, it will be just okay. I think I got it here. Just wanted to make sure I had the right set here. Okay. It'll be Mark Jones with Dusty Dvoracek and Chris Budden. They will be in Atlanta for that one. And I believe the Maiden Georgia Bulldogs were the favorites here. Yes, Georgia opening up as a 6.5-point favorite. So, MF, what is the New Year's Six bowl game with? What is the New Year's Six bowl game set without at least one David versus Goliath matchup? Georgia, big bad Maiden Georgia against a very upstart and very good Cincinnati team that we're all very high on.
And they're very hungry too. They want it. This is the one game that Anthony, you enjoy because it's the little dog against the big dog. And normally any other year we're like, big dog's got this. We're gonna say. Not necessarily. This year, the little dog has quite the bite than the big dog. Now, Cincinnati had an incredible run all year, and they've played out of their minds. They've played some great games. They've dominated the competition that they needed it to dominate, and they've played almost perfect football the whole way through. Now, a lot of people are going to go in here, and they're going to start thinking that this is a little bit of a reach. Well, how's this going to look out? How's this going to play? Well, let me tell you, folks, to see this matchup go down, to see this game go the way that it could possibly go, this is going to be one of those battles that it could go either way. But I'm going to say this. Cincinnati is definitely they definitely got what it takes to pull off this upset. Even though they are an underdog. Even though it is in Atlanta. And trust me, being in Atlanta against Georgia is normally bad news. Normally when Georgia's in Atlanta at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium, they are a powerhouse in their stadium. But the only time I've ever seen them lose has been in the SEC championship game. Any other game, they dominate. They play well. This is a team that Cincinnati is not afraid of the competition. And I'm going to openly, honestly say this. Georgia is a very vulnerable team. They've already got 2 losses on their record all year long. Georgia went out and they lost. I think they lost to Alabama once, and they lost to Florida, and the other loss actually was Alabama. So they lost to 2 very good teams, and they got blown out. Where in the case of Cincinnati, going in, I mean, Cincinnati took down Army, they took down SMU, they took down Memphis, Central Florida. Then they had to wait 3 times to play Tulsa, and then finally beat Tulsa to win the AAC title. But let's be realistic. This game is a danger game, but here's the factor. They're not afraid of the big moment. And normally in these games, 9 times out of 10, you go with the big dog. You go with the bigger guy. But we saw it with Boise State. We saw it with Central Florida. They are not afraid of the moment. They are not afraid of going up against the big dogs. And you know what? Even though it's a 7-point favorite for Georgia, I'm calling for the upset. Cincinnati wins the Peach Bowl, knocks off Georgia in their own house at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium on New Year's Day. This is going to be one of those that we're going to be talking about for years to come. We're going to get another upset of a little dog knocking off the big dog, but it won't be as big of an upset like it was when Boise State beat Oklahoma. Sorry, D.D. Woodson. Sorry, Kevin Woodson. And sorry, Jim Ross, for bringing it up. But it happened. This will be really more of a... It's not going to be a big upset. It will be an upset. But it won't be like one of those all-time type upsets in college football history. It's not one of those types. It's not like what Boise State did to Oklahoma. It's not what like Appalachian State did to Michigan. It wasn't like one of those like, oh my God, I can't believe that happened. No, if this upset happens, it's not a huge upset because I feel like it can, and I believe it will happen on New Year's Day. Cincinnati wins. Michael Bullock, it's yours.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, we've seen what Cincinnati did this season, and they've been a resilient bunch, and they're not afraid of going up against big name schools. And it doesn't get any bigger than the Georgia Bulldogs. And I know people are gonna say, "Oh, the big dog is gonna bite the little dog," and especially since it is at Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, Georgia. But Cincinnati's going to come in with that same attitude that they had all season long. They're not afraid, and they're going to give Georgia everything they have. And I'm going to go with Fletch as well. I'm calling for the upset as well. I'm going to say Cincinnati will win and basically say, no, Georgia. This may be your hometown. This may be your stadium. But we're going to turn this into our hometown and our home stadium because you want to know why Cincinnati is going to win this one? I'll give you one word to describe why I think they're going to do it. It's like what not JR. It was like what Jerry the King Lawler once said of Randy Orton back in 2004. It's destiny. That's why they're going to pull this off. It's because it's their destiny to make a name for themselves. Florio, it's yours.
Yeah. These are the games that I live for. I live for these big time matchups, these big dog, little dog, David versus Goliath situations. And it's been 3 years since we've had this, but I'll explain in a minute. But all right, I got the info I need, so here we go. Cincinnati is aiming to become. Well, hold on a minute. Well, I'll get to that in a moment. The Cincinnati Bearcats were not rewarded by the College Football Playoff Selection Committee for their undefeated season. Unfortunately, the best group of 5 team ceiling in the current system is a New Year's 6 bowl game against a Power 5 roster. Coach Luke Fickell's team will head to Atlanta to take on the Georgia Bulldogs, who are not the most ideal opponent for the Bearcats to prove their mettle against. Georgia was likely overvalued in the playoff rankings, and its 9th place rankings finish is not indicative of the season it had. The Bulldogs got better once JT Daniels stepped in at quarterback, but by that time of the season, they were beating the weaker programs in the SEC. With Daniels at the helm of the Georgia offense, Cincinnati's top-rated defense will have a chance to shut down a highly rated quarterback. Cincinnati is aiming to become the 4th group of 5 program to win a New Year's 6 game and the first since the UCF Knights in 2017. If the Bearcats defeat Georgia, they will likely win through their defensive play. They rank 10th in yards allowed and 7th in points conceded per game. The Clemson Tigers are the only team to qualify for the playoff or New Year's 6 to rank in the top 10 of either category. The Bearcats allowed a single opponent to score more than 25 points in their 9 games. They held 2 of their 3 ranked foes beneath 15 points. While Cincinnati's defense rightfully gets plenty of praise, its offense can hold its own as well. Quarterback Desmond Ridder and running back Jared Dokes are a tough duo to stop on the ground. Ridder and Dokes both gained over 600 rushing yards, and they are responsible for 19 of Cincinnati's 28 rushing touchdowns. Cincinnati's top offensive strength will go up against Georgia's front 7, which conceded 69.3 rushing yards a game in the regular season. If the Bearcats can break BS top rushing defense, it could control the clock and earn all the momentum. Even if Cincinnati controls the game on the ground, Georgia could strike back fast through Daniels, who threw for 839 yards and 9 touchdowns in 3 starts. Daniels has 3 impressive targets to work with in Kyrus Jackson, George Pickens, and Jermaine Burton. But the case against Daniels torching Cincinnati's defense comes with the evaluation of Georgia's last 3 opponents. The Mississippi State Bulldogs and South Carolina Gamecocks struggled throughout conference play, and the Missouri Tigers sit in the 2nd or 3rd tier of SEC teams, depending on how you rank them. Cincinnati will pose the first true test to Daniels inside Georgia's offense, and if he passes that challenge, Daniels could drum up the hype surrounding his team's title credentials in 2021. If the Bearcats come out with more motivation and down the Bulldogs, they will finish one of the more impressive group of 5 seasons in the last few years at 10-0. This is a tough one. I mean, my gut is telling me to go with Georgia. My heart is telling me to go with Cincinnati. And I mean, would I be surprised if Georgia won? I would not. I don't think any of us would. But I'm with these guys. I got this feeling about Cincinnati. I mean, I've been impressed with them all year, and they remind me a lot of that UCF team from 2017. And I think they can do it. So I'm going to go with MF and Bullock here. We'll make this unanimous again. I am going to go with the Cincinnati Bearcats to win the Peach Bowl, which would be their biggest win in the history of their football program, to say the very least. Same score as the other game, 31-23. So not much more to say on that. With that being said, now let's move on. Now, the college football playoff matchups are next, but we're gonna treat those games with the respect that they rightfully deserve, and we are going to save those 2 games for the main event. So before we get into those 2 big ones, we have 2 other games that we need to address first, and that is the games that will go down on Saturday. This one will go down on Saturday afternoon at 4 p.m. Eastern, and This will be, of course, on ESPN because, like I said, all the games are there. 4 p.m. Eastern on Saturday. It'll be the PlayStation Fiesta Bowl with the number 25 Oregon Ducks squaring off against the number 10 Iowa State Cyclones. State Farm Stadium, formerly the University of Phoenix Stadium in Glendale, Arizona. Dave Patch, Mike Golick, and Quint Kessenich will have the call of that one. And the spread favors Iowa State by 4.5. So Michael Bullock, started off with you here. Oregon, Iowa State, Fiesta Bowl. Who do you like?
Yeah, Oregon is playing well at the right time. I mean, yes, they are the number 25 team, but they're going up against a team that is really, really playing well this season in the Iowa State Cyclones. But yeah, Iowa State, I've just been so impressed with them, and I just don't see how they can lose this game. I mean, would I be surprised if Oregon can pull it off? I actually would not be surprised, but I just got this feeling about this Iowa State team that I think they can come out of this PlayStation Fiesta Bowl with a victory, and I think they will. So, sorry, Eric Carrier. I know you're not going to like what I'm about to say, but I got the Iowa State Cyclones winning this one. So, Flora, it is yours.
Yes, indeed. 2 weeks ago, what had started as a season with college football playoff and New Year's Six aspirations for Oregon looked like it would end in disappointment. The Ducks, who had entered the season ranked in the top 10, lost consecutive games to Oregon State and California, effectively ending their hopes of an undefeated season and the Pac-12 title. Instead, Washington and USC were set to face off for the title, but that got affected by, of course, the COVID-19 pandemic, like everything else has. When the Huskies were unable to field a full enough roster to compete because of positive cases and contact tracing, the Ducks were slid up to fill in and play on short notice. And in true 2020 fashion, Oregon upset the then number 13 USC Trojans, stealing away a Fiesta Bowl bid in a game they weren't even supposed to play in. It's always good to be good, but it never hurts to be lucky. In the desert, an Iowa State team coming off a disappointing loss to arch rival Oklahoma in the Big 12 championship game will be waiting. The Cyclones, who came into the weekend ranked number 6 in the college football playoff rankings, had an outside shot at the CFP, though even with a win over the Sooners, their path was narrow. Oklahoma avenged the loss ISU handed them earlier this year, jumping out to a 24-7 halftime lead before holding off a late Cyclones rally to win 27-21. The key to the game for Iowa State, for their offense, everything starts and ends with sophomore running back Breece Hall, who after an impressive freshman season jumped onto the scene in 2020 as one of the country's best running backs. In 11 games, Hall rushed for 1,436 yards and 19 touchdowns, while also adding 21 catches for 170 yards and 2 more scores. He leads the nation in rushing yards and attempts, and he's second in rushing touchdowns only to Alabama's Najee Harris, who has scored 24 times. The Cyclones are no slouch in the passing game, though, as junior quarterback Brock Purdy has put together an impressive season of his own, completing 66% of his passes and throwing for 2,594 yards and 18 touchdowns. ISU is one of the more balanced offenses in the country, rushing an average of 36 times a game and throwing 31. Their defense, though, has been arguably even more impressive, particularly against the run. Iowa State ranks 10th nationally in rushing defense, allowing just 104.6 yards a game to opposing offenses. Among teams that have played 10 or more games in this shortened season, the Cyclones rank 4th in rushing touchdowns allowed, only giving up 9 scores on the ground in 11 contests. For Oregon, a large part of their offensive identity is centered around running the ball, 36 attempts a game. And the Ducks will have to have success against ISU's run defense to open up their passing game. As a unit, Oregon's offense is averaging a solid 4.9 yards a carry, and it's done by committee, with 3 running backs notching more than 55 carries through 6 games. Junior running back C.J. Verdell and Travis Dye are the primary ball carriers, though quarterback Tyler Show has some wheels as well, with 263 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns of his own. On the ground, Show's success in the passing game often comes from his ability to neutralize aggressive defenses with his legs, and while his stat line won't have him in contention for the Heisman this year, he's dangerous. After attempting just 15 passes last year as a backup, he has filled the starting role admirably, throwing for 1,480 yards, 13 touchdowns, and just 5 interceptions. Continuing to take care of the ball will be key against this Cyclones defense, which has 14 total takeaways through 11 games, including 8 interceptions. Against a team who runs the ball as well as ISU does, limiting turnovers could be the difference in what's expected to be a tightly contested game. A little bit of Breece Hall goes a long way, and the Ducks have struggled all season against the run, giving up about 160 yards a game and 13 rushing touchdowns in just 6 contests. It won't be a blowout, but the Cyclones will ride Breece to their first New Year's Six Bowl victory in school history. I agree with you, Michael Bullock. I'm going with Iowa State to beat Oregon in the Fiesta Bowl. My final score, 34-24. Iowa State beats Oregon. So, MF, are we going to make it unanimous again, or what are we going to do here?
I agree. I think Iowa State is the better team going in. Oregon, like you said, was very lucky and very fortunate to be in to be where they're at. A lot of people believe that they were very fortunate to get the spot that they did, and yeah, they basically was a vulture. They stole a spot away from a team like USC or a team like Washington. It should have been them at the end. No, it wasn't. Oregon got in. So yeah, you can say whatever you want to say. But I got Iowa State winning as well. So nothing more to say. Anthony, it's yours.
We move on to our final bowl game, New Year's Six bowl game, before we get to the double main event. This game will be played on Saturday night at 8 p.m. Eastern over on ESPN from Hard Rock Stadium in Miami, Florida. My personal favorite bowl game, the Orange Bowl. Oh, yeah. The Capital One Orange Bowl, to be exact. The number 5 Texas A&M Aggies squaring off against the number 13 North Carolina Tar Heels. Bob Wischusen, Dan Orlovsky, Katie George will be on the call, and Texas A&M opening up as an 8-point favorite. So here we go. Let's get into the Orange Bowl, which, oh, by the way, has, without a doubt, the most beautiful trophy out of all the bowl games. It's my personal favorite. I mean, there's just something about that trophy. You see that trophy with God knows how many oranges inside of them. I'm like, oh, because oranges are my favorite fruit. And especially those seedless ones, baby. I mean, I don't know if they're seedless. Maybe they have seeds in them. I don't know. But it is the most sweetest trophy out of all of them. So I just wanted to get that off my chest. But all kidding aside, let's get into it. Let's see. The Texas A&M Aggies will not be able to get the ACC off their minds until after the Orange Bowl. For weeks, the SEC side was compared to the Clemson Tigers and Notre Dame Fighting Irish in the college football playoff discussion. Coach Jimbo Fisher's side was left outside of the top 4 and aligned with the North Carolina Tar Heels in the bowl game Saturday night at Hard Rock Stadium. At one point in the season, the Tar Heels were a top 5 team, but they suffered some setbacks and were the third best squad in the ACC. Quarterbacks Kellen Mond and Sam Howell may be billed as the stars of the contest, but the biggest offensive impact will be made by the running backs on both rosters. If you combine Texas A&M and North Carolina's points a game averages, it would eclipse the current over-under by 5 points. The over-under is 69.5. You do the math. Those totals and the talented quarterbacks on each roster could lead you to picking the over as your best bet. But if you dig deeper into the battle at the line of scrimmage, the under seems more likely. Both teams average more than 200 rushing yards a game, but they concede under 150. Texas A&M likes to methodically move the ball down the field through Mon and running backs Isaiah Spiller and Aeneas Smith. Mon, Spiller, and Smith combined for 1,537 of the team's 1,826 rushing yards and 14 of the 16 ground scores. Even though Texas A&M played 9 games, it has just a single receiver with more than 500 receiving yards, tight end Jalen Weidermeyer, who has 502 yards off 45 receptions. If Texas A&M attempts to break open the UNC defense through a long throw, Weidermeyer will likely be the player Mon targets. Mac Brown's team can match Texas A&M's pace and rushing totals through its duo of Michael Carter and Javonte Williams, who both ran for over 1,000 yards. Carter and Williams are a more dynamic duo than Spiller and Smith, and their big play potential could open up a lead and force Texas A&M out of its offensive rhythm. The performance Carter and Williams should learn from most to prepare for the Orange Bowl is UNC's loss to Notre Dame on Black Friday. The Fighting Irish went into Chapel Hill, North Carolina, and held the Tar Heels to 87 rushing yards. If UNC learns from its struggles against a strong rushing defense, it could maneuver through the Texas A&M front seven. If the ground game does not work, Howell can torture the A&M defense with a few big passing plays. The sophomore had a long throw of over 50 yards in 5 of his last 6 games. With Howell, Carter, Williams, and 1,000-yard wide receiver De'Ami Brown in tow, the Tar Heels have the potential to spring the upset over the 5th-ranked team. If UNC keeps the game close or wins outright, it could enter 2021 with hype around it to be Clemson's top challenger in the ACC if Notre Dame goes back to its independent schedule. Very tough one to call, but based on what I've seen lately, out of all of them, this is the toughest one right here. This really is. This one can really go either way. But I got to go with who I feel is the better team, and I think the better team right now is Texas A&M. So I'm going to go with Texas A&M, but I would not at all be surprised if North Carolina were to win. I got Texas A&M winning the Orange Bowl 34-31. It's going to be a beauty. I can't wait for it. So not much more to say. MF, Texas A&M, North Carolina, Orange Bowl. Which team is going to get the most beautiful trophy in all the bowl games?
Yeah, it is. It's one of the most iconic. It's one of the most beautiful, no doubt about it. Out of all the bowl games, this is always one of the best ones. This is always one of the best ones as well. Every year, seeing that in Miami at the Hard Rock, well, it's gone through a number of different names. Pro Player Stadium, Dolphin Stadium. It's without a doubt one of the biggest events, and it's become one of the bigger bowl games. And yeah, what are we gonna see? How's this gonna play? We'll have to wait and find out. But one thing's for sure, it is gonna be a great matchup. Texas A&M right now is probably, you kind of feel like they had an opportunity to get in. They got their hearts broken. They easily should have gotten in there, but we'll wait and see how this plays out. But this is gonna be one heck of a matchup, and I gotta say it. At the end of the day, I gotta say it. I believe it's gonna be Texas A&M. I think A&M will win the game. They'll win the Orange Bowl, and yeah, I think they'll get the big win here. So close game. I'll probably say about a touchdown favorite, but A&M wins it. Bullock, it's yours.
Yeah, this should be a really good one. But yeah, I'm with you guys. I'm gonna make it unanimous. Texas A&M is the better team. I mean, no disrespect to what North Carolina has done this season, but Texas A&M is the better team here. So I got Texas A&M winning. But all I can say is now, Florio, it's time. It's time to get in to 2 of the most important games in this New Year's Six and that is the college football playoff semifinal. And one of them, well, when it comes to the commentary, well, we'll let you get into that for when we get there.
Yeah, that big story will be as part of our second matchup. So that's all there is to say on that story. But anyways, gentlemen and folks out there, it's time for the double main event, the college football playoff semifinals. And you better believe we're going to be breaking down this one as only we can. It starts on Friday afternoon, New Year's Day, 4 p.m. Eastern on ESPN. The number 4 Notre Dame Fighting Irish squaring off against the number 1 team in all the land, the Alabama Crimson Tide, in what is the Rose Bowl game presented by Capital One. However, this game will not be played at the Rose Bowl in Pasadena, California. It has been relocated to AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas. Sean McDonough, Todd Blackledge, Todd McShay, Allison Williams, they will have the call. And Alabama, to the surprise of absolutely no one, Alabama opening up as a 20-point favorite. Ouch. I don't know what else there is to say. I believe it's this one goes to MF. So MF, you get the honor of starting it off. I don't know which game is the more compelling when it comes to the playoff, because that's our top 2. So I know you'll address that in a moment. But for right now, number 4 Notre Dame, number 1 Alabama. It's the Rose Bowl game, and I know you. The Rose Bowl is your favorite game, and I know it's got to break your heart that we can't be in Pasadena for this one.
Yeah, no, because of the fact that it was COVID rules and the state of California would not allow the game to happen there. Basically, they kind of put a moratorium on gatherings or events in their stadium, in their state. That's what happened with the 49ers. That's why the 49ers got booted out of Santa Clara, because of the COVID rules. So, unfortunately, I found out about a couple of weeks ago, right before they were about to announce the college football playoff, that, Rose Bowl was not going to happen in Pasadena, and we panicked. We were freaking out. We're like, oh no, what does that mean? What's going to happen? Thank God for Arlington. Thank God for Jerry Jones, Stephen Jones, and the Cowboy and the Dallas Cowboy company, the Dallas Cowboys themselves. They saved the Rose Bowl game. They were like, no, come to us. We'll gladly bring you to come to Arlington. We'll do the game here. We'll have you're allowed your fans to be in the stands. We'll have the game. Yeah, we'll do it. So don't worry, we got you. So thank God to Dallas. Thank God to Arlington. That's a big thing for them. And because of their capacity, they're gonna have at least 20. I think it's at least 20 to 40,000 fans. Because in that stadium you could easily fit 100,000 in Arlington. But I know with the rules of what you're allowed to have in a stadium, and especially in Arlington, you're gonna have at least 25,000 in the stadium watching this game, and this one's a beauty. This is a big matchup, no doubt about it. But look, you gotta go Alabama. And don't get me wrong, Notre Dame is a great team. They've been dominating all year long. They easily could be one of the big favorites. They're a perennial favorite. But the problem was that I think they got exposed last week. Or I want to say when they played the ACC championship game. I think they got exposed by Clemson. I think Clemson exposed them. And now you're going up against Alabama, who is a juggernaut, a tough team. You got Devontae Smith, who I believe should be the Heisman Trophy winner this year. You know what? I always hear about the love that the quarterbacks get, and Matt Jones is there. You could talk about Trevor Lawrence, and we'll talk about him in just a little bit when we talk about Clemson and Oklahoma. And oh, by the way, Florio, that's our game. Clemson versus Ohio State. That's our game. I gotta feel like right now, I feel like Oklahoma is. I want to say Alabama is just a step above the rest. You got Devontae Smith again, Heisman Trophy winner in my book. You got Matt Jones, who's a very good quarterback, very solid, but you don't want to underestimate Notre Dame either. They've been in big moments like this. They did take out Clemson. So we can't just sneeze and say, oh, this is not going to happen. If they could keep this game close, there's going to be a lot of pressure on Alabama. If Notre Dame can keep this close, they got a shot at this. But the problem is Alabama will wear you down. They love to run the football early and then bomb you deep with throws downfield. If Smith gets open and he starts going off, Notre Dame is dead in the water. There's no way Notre Dame wins this game. They're going to have to play. What they're going to have to do is what they did to Clemson at Notre Dame Stadium. You got to grind it out. You got to run the football early, run, attack. The quarterback's going to have to play play action, bootlegs, RPOs. Try to make Alabama stymie. If you can, and what you could also do is up tempo. Bama does not like tempo. Bama does not like up-tempo offense. Any type of offense where you got to keep your Bama's D on the field, where they can't sub out, where they can't get their nickel package in. They like to use 3-4-4-3 defenses, and then they can't sub that out to like a nickel or a prevent, or to get the corners out. You could expose them in that game. But Alabama's got so many weapons that they can kill you with. That's the problem that Notre Dame has. I don't think they have enough weapons that can outmatch and outflank what Alabama brings to the table. Bama wins. They move on. Nothing more to say, Michael Bullock. It is yours.
Bullock, are you there? There you are.
Oh, I thought I unmuted myself, but I guess I didn't. So, yeah. So, yeah. I mean, like you said, I mean, for Notre Dame, it's a tough task. I mean, to me, one of the things they got to do if they want to have any chance of winning, they need to hopefully get the ball first and get off to a fast start and try to put some pressure on Alabama early. And if they can do that throughout the game, they could have a chance, but I think it could be too tall of a task for them because, I mean, no disrespect to Notre Dame and what they've done this season. It's just that Alabama is just a much better team in this whole season. So, yeah, I mean, that's the only way I see them winning this, and I unfortunately just don't see it happening. So I'm with Fletch on this one. I got Alabama winning this one as well. So there's really nothing more to say. Florio, it's a tall order for your Fighting Irish, but I think it's just going to be too much to ask for against a team like Alabama. It's your
Exactly. I mean, this is going to be the 2012-2013 national championship game all over again. That's the price. That's the price they had to pay for getting whooped by Clemson. So if it wasn't for that, it would have been us going against Ohio State, and I would have liked our chances there. But anyways, number 1 Alabama meets number 4 Notre Dame in the college football playoff semifinal on Friday afternoon. The game was relocated from the Rose Bowl to AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas. Kickoff is scheduled for 5 p.m. on ESPN. Alabama is making its sixth college football playoff appearance and is looking for a 6th national championship under Coach Nick Saban. Tide ranked 2nd in the FBS with 49.7 points a game, with an offense that features quarterback Mac Jones, running back Najee Harris, and receiver Devontae Smith. Notre Dame is back in the playoff for the 2nd time in 3 seasons under their coach Brian Kelly after an impressive 1-year tour of the ACC. But the Fighting Irish enter the matchup with the same old big game questions after a 34-10 loss to Clemson in the ACC championship game. Quarterback Ian Book is 30-4 as a starter. The Crimson Tide initially opened as 17.5-point favorites, and that line has jumped up 2.5 points to 20. It is the largest semifinal spread in the history of the college football playoff. The Irish lead the all-time series 5-2, and that includes victories in the 1973 Sugar Bowl and the 1975 Orange Bowl. The Crimson Tide won the last meeting 42-14 in the BCS championship game on January 7th of 2013 in Miami. The 3 trends to know: the Crimson Tide is 4-1 straight up in semifinals, CFP semifinals, and Alabama is 3-2 against the spread in those games. The Crimson Tide 1-1 against the spread as a double-digit favorite in those games. The Irish are 5-6 against the spread this season. Notre Dame is 12-10-1 against the spread in neutral site games under Brian Kelly since 2010, and the Crimson Tide is 8-3 against the spread this season, and that includes a 2-1 against the spread mark when the spread is fewer than 20 points. The 3 things to watch: Notre Dame's offensive line. In that BCS championship loss in 2013, the Irish were manhandled up front. Notre Dame's offensive line features All-American candidates in Liam Eichenberg, Aaron Banks, Robert Hainsey, and Tommy Kramer. It's an experienced group that has to give Ian Book time to work against a talented Alabama defense that improved in the second half of the season. That said, Texas A&M, Ole Miss, and Florida combined to average 374 passing yards against Alabama. Book can have success with targets in Michael Mayer, Avery Davis, and Ben Skronik, but he needs to be more decisive in the pocket. That could open up the running game for Kieran Williams, who averages 122.1 rushing yards a game. Number 2, Alabama's running game. The Irish allowed just 3.7 yards a carry, and the defense led by Butkus Award winner Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah is solid. The Crimson Tide will test that with a rushing attack that averages 5 yards a carry. Najee Harris rushed for 24 touchdowns and averaged 5.9 yards a carry. If Harris is breaking loose early, then Notre Dame will be in trouble. And number 3, the first quarter. With a spread that high, sometimes it really is that simple. Alabama outscored opponents 132-37 in the first quarter this season, and it has outscored opponents 52-13 in those 5 previous semifinals. A quick lead would allow offensive coordinator Steve Sarkisian to do what he wants. What will Notre Dame defensive coordinator Clark Lee do to disrupt that with his back 7? And the stat that matters, 202.3. Mac Jones leads the FBS with that passer rating, which is higher than the 202 passer rating LSU's Joe Burrow put up last season. Devontae Smith and John Mechie are huge problems for a Notre Dame secondary that had 2 interceptions this season, and Jones has played his best in big games. Smith poses the biggest challenge for the Irish's defense. The lines on both sides will tell you right away whether the Irish stand a chance in yet another big game opportunity. Alabama's offense is clicking at an all-time level, and Jones should be able to settle in with the perimeter targets early. The Crimson Tide hit 2 long touchdowns in the second quarter to build a 2-score lead at halftime. Notre Dame threatens to make it a game in the third quarter when Book responds, but Alabama turns to Harris in closing time. That puts Saban within reach of a 7th national championship, which would break legendary coach Paul Bear Bryant's record. Next victim. And I hate to say that for my team, but it is true. It's going to be another next victim moment here. Roll Tide, nothing more to say. Alabama rolls Notre Dame again. But it won't be it will not be as bad as that title game was. But it's still going to be bad, though. 42-23, Alabama beats Notre Dame and advances to the championship game on January the 11th. That will also be at Hard Rock Stadium in Miami, Florida. Our final game of the night, it's the other college football playoff semifinal matchup. An approximate kickoff of 8:45 Eastern Time on ESPN. And it will feature the number 3 Ohio State Buckeyes squaring off against the number 2 Clemson Tigers in the All-State Sugar Bowl at the Mercedes-Benz Superdome in New Orleans, Louisiana. Chris Fowler, Kirk Herbstreit, Maria Taylor, Tom Rinaldi, they will be there. Clemson opening up as a 7.5-point favorite. But the sad news that MF posted it in our chat. Kirk Herbstreit announcing that he has tested positive for COVID-19 and he will be working College Game Day and the Sugar Bowl from his home. At least that game. Hopefully he will be good to go and will be back with Chris Fowler and crew when they get to Miami for the national championship game on January the 11th. So that's that. So Michael Bullock, you have the honors here to lead off on our final game of the night. Ohio State, number 2 Clemson in the All-State Sugar Bowl at the Superdome in New Orleans. Who's going to join Alabama in that national championship game on January the 11th? Michael Bullock started off.
For the road for Ohio State, it was a crazy one. Because for Ohio State, they weren't quite sure if they were going to have a season because, well, obviously of COVID and the Big Ten saying that there wasn't going to be a season, but thank goodness there was. And then, unfortunately, some bad luck went their way where they couldn't get to the 6 games that were required for them to qualify for the Big Ten title. But the Big Ten changed the way, they changed it and they got to the Big Ten title game and they won it, and here they are. But now the daunting task for them, they got to deal with Trevor Lawrence and the Clemson Tigers. So Ohio State will definitely give Clemson some fits, but I think in the end, Clemson's just too much because of Trevor Lawrence. So to me, I got Clemson winning this one, and they will move on to that national championship game against Alabama on January the 7th. So nothing more to say. Florio, it is yours.
That game's on January 11th, Michael Bullock, not the 7th.
All right, January 11th, yeah.
There you go. All right. Number 2 Clemson meets number 3 Ohio State in the other college football playoff semifinal on Friday night. The game is at the All-State Sugar Bowl at the Mercedes-Benz Superdome in New Orleans. Kickoff is scheduled for 8:45 on ESPN. Clemson is back in the CFP for the 6th consecutive season under Coach Dabo Swinney. Trevor Lawrence is 34-1 as a starter, and the Tigers are looking for a 3rd straight and 5th overall appearance in the national championship game. Ohio State won a 4th consecutive Big Ten championship despite having 3 games canceled because of COVID-19 concerns. Second-year coach Ryan Day's only loss came last season to Clemson in a 28-22 thriller in the Fiesta Bowl semifinal. Justin Fields leads the offense, and it's safe to say both sides are ready for the rematch. The Tigers have stuck as a 7.5-point favorite, and the line has not moved much. The Tigers are 4-0 all-time against the Buckeyes, and that includes the 2 CFP semifinal victories. Clemson beat Ohio State 17-15 in the 1978 Gator Bowl. That game is most remembered for legendary coach Woody Hayes punching Clemson linebacker Charlie Bauman. The Tigers also beat the Buckeyes 40-35 in the 2014 Orange Bowl. The 3 trends to know: Clemson is 4-1 against the spread in 5 previous CFP semifinals. The Tigers were an underdog against Ohio State in 2016 and a slight favorite last year. The Buckeyes are a rare underdog. Since 2012, when Urban Meyer took over, Ohio State is 7-1 against the spread as an underdog. That one loss, however, was in last year's Fiesta Bowl against Clemson. Clemson was favored in every game this season and is 5-6 against the spread. The Buckeyes are 12-8 against the spread the past 2 seasons under Ryan Day. The 3 things to watch. Number 1, Trey Sermon's encore. The Ohio State running back rushed for 331 yards in the Big Ten championship game against Northwestern. Can he have the same success against Clemson that J.K. Dobbins, who rushed for 174 yards in last year's semifinal, had against a front that allowed 2.8 yards a carry? The interior matchup between Ohio State's Josh Myers and Wyatt Davis against Clemson freshman Brian Brees and Miles Murphy will determine how much success the Buckeyes have on the ground. Number 2, what did Ohio State learn? Clemson mixed up the Buckeyes last year with a role reversal. Lawrence rushed for 107 yards and a touchdown, and Travis Etienne had 3 catches for 98 yards and a pair of TDs. Ohio State backup linebacker Justin Hilliard made key plays in the Big Ten championship game. Will he be more involved in defensive coordinator Kerry Coombs' game plan? The Buckeyes were able to pressure Lawrence in the pocket last year and will need to do that again. Big play receivers, number 3. Our number 3 trend is big play receivers. Both teams have an outstanding 1-2 combination at receiver. Ohio State's Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave, who missed the Big Ten championship game after testing positive for COVID-19, will test a Clemson secondary that won't have Nolan Turner in the first half. Turner was ejected in the second half of the ACC championship game for a targeting call. Lawrence is working with receiver Amari Rogers and Cornell Powell. The stat that matters, 12.8/12.9. Those are the average yards per catch for each team. Fields and Lawrence can stretch the field, and both are working with a deep group of skill position talent. Watch the average yards per catch and which back 7 is better at limiting the big plays in the passing game. Fields and Lawrence have combined for just 9 interceptions this season, but in a game like this, 2 turnovers could be the difference. There is game of the year potential here. Emotions will be high, and Ohio State will be playing with confidence, knowing the missed opportunities and bad calls that happened last year. Shaun Wade's early interception gets the Buckeyes rolling, and once again, they lead at halftime. Lawrence, however, rallies the Tigers again, and a late TD pass to Powell is the difference maker in yet another thriller. Clemson advances to the CFP championship game where, surprise, Alabama will be waiting. I have Clemson winning this game as well in what will be a 5-star Shakespearean drama classic just like last year. 34-31, Clemson beats Ohio State. Nothing more to say. The Kirk Herbstreit to my Chris Fowler. Good old MF Michael Fletcher. Do that thing I like to close it out. Hello, friends.
Well, the thing is that this is the ultimate battle. This is why I wanted this game, because these 2 teams know each other really well. These 2 teams have always been in battles, always been in wars, and it's really exciting this time around. Now, Clemson, yes, they were good. They have played great. But Ohio State has been a team on a mission. They've dominated every team that they've had to face against. They haven't had any team that's really rattled their cage all year long. And Clemson has lost. They lost to Notre Dame. Yes, I get it. I understand there was no Trevor Lawrence in that game. So you kind of have to put a little asterisk on that game. And we saw what Clemson did to Notre Dame in the ACC championship. And you're thinking, all right, well, that's Clemson as usual. That's how they play. Ohio State wants this game. And I think they're the more fresher team because they have not played as many games as Clemson has. And I kind of feel like this could be the perfect storm for a perfect upset. And that's what I'm going to go with. Anthony, Mike Bullock, I disagree. Ohio State wins and advances to the national championship game, knocking off Clemson 42-35. Ohio State knocks off Clemson. Anthony, let's close it for the night.
Wow, that's I'm very surprised to hear that, but considering how high you've been on Clemson all these years. But all right, you never know. You never know.
This is the year for Ohio State. I feel like Ohio State hasn't played that many games. On top of that, Clemson, I think if they saw what I saw when Clemson lost to Notre Dame at Notre Dame Stadium, the way that Ohio State offense kind of plays is almost Notre Dame type-esque. I think they can match them blow for blow, and their defense is so underrated. I think they're going to give Trevor Lawrence fits, and that's why I think Ohio State wins this game.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So, talk about a way to close the show with a bang. Wow, that definitely closed this show with a bang. No doubt about that. So, all right. So, with that being said, that will put the bow on this special edition of Strictly Sports, this New Year's 6 Bowl Games preview special. We want to thank you all so very much for tuning in. We'll be back with you at this time tomorrow night for Wednesday Night Mayhem, a very emotional and special Wednesday Night Mayhem. MF will have the unfortunate and the sad duty to we will have to start the show with a heavy heart because we will pay our respects to Mr. Brody Lee, who shockingly and suddenly passed away this past Saturday night at the age of 41. We will pay our respects to him, and then we will review what will undoubtedly be a very emotional AEW Dynamite, maybe the most emotional Dynamite, very likely since the show, their first show after COVID, when Cody Rhodes gave that beautiful speech that started that show back in March. But when they went to the Daily's place, but it's going to be an emotional night nonetheless, and we'll get into that, and we'll also get into NXT. That'll be tomorrow night. We'll be off on Thursday and Friday for New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, respectively. No Cerebral Smack Talk on Friday night for New Year's Day. We'll then be back with you on Saturday night for Week 17 of Strictly Sports NFL Saturday. We'll get the meaningless games out of the way first, and then we'll get into the games with the playoff implications. I know MF will be loaded with scenarios, and I know he's going to be ready with all those scenarios. I know all that for a fact. So get those ready, MF, come Saturday. That's all I know. And then we'll do it all again starting next Monday night for Ridiculously Ross. So that's it. So until tomorrow night for Wednesday Night Mayhem, this is Anthony Florio here for good old MF Michael Fletcher, and in spirit, Michael Bullock, Edie Woodson, and always in forever, FKG 401, Derek Forever. You know the routine, everybody. Thumbs up. Talk to you later. Yeah, throw the Fortune 4 style. Bye for now, my friends. God bless. Be good to each other. Have a blessed Wednesday, and until tomorrow night for Wednesday Night Mayhem, you've been watching this very special edition of Strictly Sports, our New Year's 6 Bowl Games preview right here on the Tone 25 on YouTube and StreamYard.com. For everybody who's been a part of this one, for now, Anthony Florio, so long, and bye, everybody, bye.